All right, recording in progress. Let's start. Obeisance to Maguru in protecting Manjushri who holds his heart to scriptural texts embodies of these things or things as they are, whose understanding shines forth as the sun unclouded by defilements or traces of ignorance, who teaches in 60 ways with a patient love of a father for his only son. All creatures caught in the prison of samsara, confused in the darkness of their ignorance, overwhelmed by their suffering. Yours was strong and thunder proclamation of the Dhamma arises under stupor of our delusions and frees us from the iron chains of our karma, whose powerful sword of wisdom hews our suffering wherever its products appear, clearing away the darkness of all ignorance. Antrecho Manjushu's princely body is adorned with the 112 marks of a Buddha, who has completed the 10 stages, achieving the highest perfection of a Bodhisattva, who has been pure from the beginning. O Manjushu, loving one with the brilliance of your wisdom, illuminate the darkness enclosed in my mind, enlighten my intelligence and wisdom so I may gain insight into the Buddha's words and the texts that explain them. I'll go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the highest assembly. From the accumulations that I collect by listening to the teachings, may I attain the state of a Buddha to be able to benefit all sentient beings. I'll go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the highest assembly. From the accumulations that I collect by listening to the teachings, may I attain the state of a Buddha to be able to benefit all sentient beings. I'll go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the highest assembly. From the accumulations that I collect by listening to the teachings, may I attain the state of a Buddha to be able to benefit all sentient beings. Alrighty. We haven't covered much today in Geshe-la's class. So was doing some reading at home and trying to come up with additional points to what we've covered today. I didn't find much, to be honest. I read through Khenpo Kumpen's presentation. I thought there are quite a lot of inspiring things that he says here. I think that, first of all, he's more elaborate than Geshe, than Gyatso Dhamma Rinchen. Thank you very much. Who has probably, no, it was probably Geshe as well. Geshe Gyatso Dhamma Rinchen. So he's more elaborate in Gyatso Dhamma Rinchen. The translation is nicer. So it has kind of a certain flow to it. So I thought of maybe reading through quite a few passages just to have more to work with. And on top of that, if you guys at home have any comments or questions or things that you wanted to bring up, then we can also do that. So what we did last week in going through the dedication chapter number 12, I think that what I did at the end of the previous tutorial is to look at the dedication from the viewpoint of karma, right? So this is what Khenpo Kumpel mentioned in his commentary, that when we wish for people, for example, to for the naked find clothing, for example, it says that being naked, not having enough clothes to wear, is a result of karmic effects, actions that we have created in the past. So we can also think of wishing sentient beings not only to be free from that suffering, but also to be free from the cause of suffering, such as, for example, taking away the clothes of our parents or clothes from the needy, stealing robes and so forth. So we wish others to be free from suffering, the cause of suffering. So to be free from this particular karmic causes, but also then we bring into a practice in deciding to be more resolute in our self-guiding pure ethical discipline. So it's a nice way to supplement the chapter on dedication. So I think that in the previous week, we reached verses 19 and 20. I don't remember if we read through Khenpo Kumpen's commentary of verse 20, but it says, at least with respect to causation, karma, cause and effect, it says in page 417, may those who are poor and destitute to suffer the result of their residual karma of robbery and stealing have perfect wealth. May they have gold, silver, horses, and elephants. There you go. May you have horses and elephants. Sorry? Yeah, and somewhere to keep them. But then he says another kind of, I thought that this is a really nice way of stating that, but because I think that this is the type of poverty that I experience, so that probably many people in our society experience. So on the other hand, the poverty of those who wish for many things and are never contented with what they have is even worse than the penury of, do you say penury? Penury of those who have nothing, right? So when Geshe Jaman was here at Chimrezik Institute and he had a television at home, I used to watch television with him, and often, particularly if you watch a either a reality show or one of those shows on TV where they bring people that either come from a difficult background or people that actually come from a very good background, it seems that everyone still finds ways of shedding tears about their past. And of course, I think that this kind of sadness or pain that we feel is genuine, but I thought that kind of often I felt that this is definitely a first world problem, in many of the things I watched on television, but it's still on the, as Khenpo Kumpen says here, the poverty of those who wish for many things and are never contented with what they have is even worse than the penury of those who have nothing. So an example of this, and it is indeed the worst kind of poverty, is given in the story of a poor but noble man. Anyway, there's a story here. May those who are tormented by mental suffering be freed from it. May they have happiness and joy. There are those whose hopes are dashed by their companions. Sorry. And there are those who never seem to succeed in either spiritual or temporal pursuits. All such people eventually despair. May they be successful. May their minds become whole. May they be strong and steadfast and thus be able to accomplish everything. May they have courage and perfect self-confidence. So that's what we did last week in relation to verse 21. Let's look at what we've covered today. Today, there was this bulk of verses from 23. So actually, this is what I read was from verse 20. Today, we've covered those bulk of verses from 23, I think. Did we start with point C or point D? I can't remember. We started today with B, point B. Dedicated so that they may be without the suffering of illness and the suffering of encountering aversion. We didn't do that. We started with point D. All right. Yeah, so Geshe gave a really nice, what do you say, speech, discourse, explanation of how to think about those verses. And since that's quite straightforward, I have nothing to add to that. So I just thought of reading through what Khenpo Kumpen says. So let's begin with verse 23. May all travelers be happy in every direction whatsoever. May the aims for which they travel be effortlessly accomplished. I think that as Geshe mentioned today, those who travel for business and so forth, may whatever they do be done in accord with the Dharma. Yeah, or not be contradictory. To go in accord with the Dharma or not be contradictory to the Dharma. Is it? Yeah, it could be like neutral. Yeah. Yeah, I see your point. Yeah, may it not be harmful to others. May that be done with ethical discipline that does not harm others. So verse 23 says, may merchants and all other travelers, whoever they are and wherever they may be, who set up in pursuit of spiritual or material goals encounter no adversity on their way, such as bandits or diseases that afflict themselves or their animals. May they travel happily on good roads and in pleasant conditions. May they gain without need of toil the spiritual and material purposes, gold or silver and so on which they set their hearts and for the sake of which they have gone on their travel. So that's verse 23. That's good. Mm. All right. So Venerable Chuki is adding also in comment on what Lama Zopa Rinpoche does when he travels overseas and such. Hey. All right. So when Lama Zopa Rinpoche travels, is it for me? All right. So there's no discussion tomorrow because of Sherby's doing. All right. So there is discussion tomorrow. Cool. All right. Thank you. No worries. So Venerable Chuki added this comment that when Lama Zopa Rinpoche travels overseas, when he takes flight and so forth, then he says mantras and prayers, not only in general, but also for the sake of all the people that are there in the airplane, all the people that travel together, may they be safe and so forth. Which reminds me that also I was having a conversation with Elsa a while ago, and she said that when Lama Zopa Rinpoche was at the hospital after the stroke that he had at Bendigo, it kind of insisted on also blessing all the beds of all the other patients in the hospital ward and so forth. So if you can do dedication galore, of course, the more the better. No, and also doing it with kind of sincere intention is a practice of loving kindness and care for others. Mm. Mm. All right, so Chuck is saying that there's such many stories like that. Like, for example, Rinpoche going down from Laudo together with other lamas and other monks, and it always takes heaps of times because Rinpoche makes it a point to do prayers and pujas for the sake of ants or other insects or animals that are encountered along the way, which at some point brings other people to a sense of despair. Yeah, please, no more ants and so forth. Anyway, so verse 24. May those who sail in boats and ships fulfill their wishes. Having happily returned to shore, may they be joyfully united with their relatives. Khenpo Kumpen says, may those who set sail on rivers or put to sea in ships be protected from the dangers of sudden storms or monsters of the deep. That's quite nice, monsters of the deep. May they effortlessly accomplish all that they desire, the wish-fulfilling gem and so on. May they come safely to shore and to pleasant reunion with their parents or loved ones, there to pass their time in enjoyment and pleasant conversations. May that come to pass. Then the next verse, 25, I believe, may anguished wanderers who have gone astray in deserts meet with other travelers and without fear of robbers, thieves, tigers, and others, may they proceed easily without fatigue. Khenpo Kumpen says, and may those who wander and have lost their way in the wilderness, in desolate wastes, devoid of water, grass, or trees, or else in fearful forests, not knowing where to go, meet with fellow travelers who will show them the path safe from robbers or wild beasts. May they reach their destination without difficulty or fatigue. Then verse 26 says, may the unprotected children and elderly, lost and anxious in desolate places and the like, those intoxicated with sleep and the insane, be watched over by the gods. Then he says, in lonely places in the wild, filled with venomous serpents, where tigers and leopards prowl, from the thoroughfares of men, places known to the fear of cruel non-human beings, orcs and wraiths. I think they're probably the orcs. Yeah, it seems like kind of the translator of this text maybe watched a lot of the Rings. Orcs and wraiths, rocky mountains and jagged cliffs, pathless wastes that are filled with horrors, in all such places, may those who are forlorn and destitute, whether young or old, who fall asleep exhausted on the way, completely unconscious and oblivious to the peril, be protected. May they be shielded from the wraiths and flesh-devouring orcs, from spirit that shorten their lives and steal away the radiance, that drain away and sever all their strength of life. May they be guarded from such adversity, be protected by deities who are on the side of goodness, by the high gods, the 75 wardens of the heaven of the pure, and by the 5 tutelary deities that are close to humankind, and by the grand lords of those islands, of those lands, sorry. So lots of wishes. So those are the verses that Geshe-la highlighted today. Then we also covered verses 27 to 30. We can cover them also quickly and pull out a couple of points. May beings be liberated from non-leisure. Actually, before we do that, let's just look at the outline for a second, because I think that we're moving on to another point in the outline. So, dedicating so that they may accomplish the desired aim, beginning with dedicating so that they may obtain excellences is part of dedicating for the welfare of humans in general. So dedicating so that they obtain the support of freedoms and endowments, freedoms and opportunities and excellent resources. First of all, say, may beings be liberated from the non-leisures and be endowed with faith, wisdom, and mercy. Through food conduct becoming perfect, may they always recollect their lives. May everyone, just like Space Treasury, have uninterrupted resources. So there are a couple of points that I wanted to pull out from this section. First of all, we have spoken a lot before about freedoms and richnesses, or freedoms and endowments. So the 8 freedoms and 10 richnesses, which make it possible for us to practice the Dharma. So to meet the Dharma, to be inspired by the Dharma, and to have supporting environments that make it possible for us to study, reflect, and meditate. So we wish other living beings just the same. So it says in the commentary, where is it? Sorry, I lost the point in the commentary. Okay, to page 419 at the bottom. All right. So will you please put those other verses into the tutorial notes? Monsters from the deep. Yeah, that's what Kempo Kumpel, the orcs and so forth. Yeah. So, and also Jane says, what comes to mind are people like illegal immigrants who have to flee their country on dangerous pathways, using leaky boats, etc., traveling full of desperation to reach a country that will protect them. Yeah, illegal immigrants or refugees. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, I remember my father was, I think, as far as I remember, 13 when World War II started, and he and his family also had to flee to Russia. So I think that probably they follow a similar path where kind of they had no idea where they're going. They made it at the end, but I think there are probably still people around the world in desperation or dangerous time, they might end up in similar circumstances. So verse 27 says, or Khenpo Kumba says, may all beings be free from the suffering implied by the 8 conditions in which they have no leisure to practice the Dhamma. May they obtain the freedom and excellence of human existence, and may they be happy. Amongst those who achieve a human form, there are some whose minds are corrupt by false ideas. There are upturned vessels. Even if a Buddha were to appear, it would do them no good. If one has no faith in the 3 jewels, no belief in the 4 truths or in the principle of dependent arising, and especially in the karmic law of cause and effect, and if one persists in what should not be done and neglects what should be done, the sole result will be to fall lower and lower into the evil destinies or to the lower realms. So I think that still kind of it refers to those who haven't got freedoms and richnesses. So first of all, there is a suffering implied for those who are in the miserable realms, right? So may they be free from the miserable realms, animals, hungry ghosts, and hell beings, may they be free from those states and obtain happiness. But we've spoken about them before. Here we're looking at those of pleasant state of existence. So you have those, for example, that were born just as humans, not with freedoms and richnesses, but just as humans. And you might remember that before we said that to be born as a human being, a mere rebirth as a human being depends upon having gathered a single bit of ethics. And on top of that, to be born as a human being, but with freedoms and richnesses, we also need to not only have practiced pure ethical disciplines, but we also have had to practice generosity and so forth, the 6 perfections, and to connect it up with standards aspirations. So we wish those who do not have or did not create those causes, those who do not have a precious human rebirth with freedoms and richnesses, which means that they might be free from a miserable state of existence, but they could be with wrong views that completely blind them to Dharma. With what? QAnon. Oh yeah. Yeah, QAnon. Yeah. Mm. All right. Yeah, so Chuki mentions that she just read about this guy that was completely got into QAnon for about a year, kind of with all those fanciful ideas, and his family was calling out for help. 4 corners. Empire. All right. Yeah, Chuki is saying that it seems that Australia, the UK, and US are really big on QAnon beliefs. Yeah, so you can be born with wrong views, or not be born with wrong views. You can be you can acquire them, but also manipulate it in the system where you kind of, when your mind is completely ripe to be manipulated that way, so that it blocks your mind from the Dharma. Also, in terms of when we think of the 10 richnesses, then you might not have faith in the source, which means mainly faith in the teachings of the Buddha, the 3 repositories. You might have done horrible things before, such as the 5 actions without an intervening period, and you might not have met the Buddha's teachings and so forth. So all of those things mean that you could find yourself in situations where you got no ethical discipline of no religion whatsoever, or that you're prone to thinking that your negative actions do not really do not end up in miserable effects. They're not ethically wrong and so forth, and therefore there's an implied suffering in that because you will experience future suffering. So here it says that we wish those in that situation to be free from those conditions. If one has no faith in the three jewels, no belief in the four truths, or in the principle of dependent arising, especially in the karmic law of cause and effect, and if one persists in what should not be done and neglects what should be done, the sole result would be to fall lower and lower into evil destinies. We should have the wish that such things, or that such beings, be freed from their sufferings, and that they be perfectly endowed with the four kinds of faith. So here it says vivid, yearning, confident, and irreversible. So often when we speak about faith, and I think that we will speak about faith later on this year when we'll study minds and mental factors. So here we wish others to be perfectly endowed with faith, in that clear faith, which makes them see the good qualities of, for example, the lamas, the good qualities of the objects of refuge, the good qualities of the teachings, right? So being able to recognize those good qualities is what we refer to with clear faith. Then we also wish them to have yearning faith, the wish to, for example, to obtain the state of the three jewels, to become Buddha, to embody the Dhamma, to become a Sangha member, the wish to obtain the state of liberation, the wish to obtain the state of liberation, the wish to obtain the state of a Guru Buddha, and so forth. Also confident or trusting faith, trusting in causality, the faith that understands causality, and then because of that, the faith that understands karma, cause and effect. And thereby it becomes irreversible faith, the faith in which you do not turn back from what you believe. And I guess that this mainly has to do with an informed faith, right? So you wish living beings to have an informed faith rather than just to have blind faith. And it's just not to say that blind faith is bad, but it's better to have faith that is born from knowledge. So we wish sentient beings to be free from sufferings, and so that they perfectly become endowed with the four kinds of faith. For the eyes of the wisdom have been blinded with regards to what is to be done, what is to be done, and what is not to be done. As a result, they're ignorant, disignorant, and foolish people have no success even in profane activities of the present life. It is hardly necessary to say that they fail to understand and accomplish the Dhamma. Therefore, may those who are destitute of wisdom be free from the suffering of their stupidity, which prevents them from achieving their own and others' welfare. May they enjoy the fullness of wisdom, both inborn and acquired. So here the commentary refers to, kind of uses the strong term stupidity, but I think that you can just as well say that there are many people around us that we wouldn't call stupid, but still in terms of managing their affairs this life and next lifetime, it's not necessarily that things are done in a wise way, right? So we wish people to be able to do well in this life, and definitely to refrain from actions which are detrimental to future lives. The root of the Mahayana path is compassion for all that lives. When beings like this, the pitiless intentions and actions bring them ruin in this and future lives. May they be free from such sufferings. May they be endowed with great love and compassion for beings, like loving mothers for their children. May they refrain from impure and sinful sustenance, such as alcohol and meat, and also from the 5 kinds of wrong livelihood. Here, when it says, may they refrain from impure and sinful sustenance, I guess that we can say that food, which is wrong views, food which is a wrong type of food, or that has been obtained in harming others or in a deceitful way and so forth. Alcohol, all right, sorry. I don't know, sinful sounds a bit pious. Sinful food. Avocados are definitely sinful. Anyway, May those who consume impure and sinful food rid themselves of it. May they eat food that comes from an utterly pure livelihood, unstained by negative actions. May they be like the birds, satisfied with whatever they find. To behave badly, to despise one's parents, to trade for profit, to slaughter animals and make traffic of their meat, to give scandal to the lay people, all such reprehensible conduct is a disgrace to the triple gem. The life of doctrine is exchanged for money. The vows are weakened and the Sama is distorted. Such negative conduct brings destruction to oneself and others. May those who act in this way be freed from it. May they keep their pledges. May they refrain from alcohol. May they not tell lies. May they adhere first and foremost to the 16 pure principles of human society, what we call the 16 guidelines. So the 60 guidelines is created by King Tenzin Sambo, as far as I remember. Trizon Detsen, thank you. So those 16 guidelines advising in general how people should behave in kind of the lay community, which now I think kind of we consider it is relevant not only to Buddhist society, but to society by and large. So may the minds be graced with the 7 sublime riches of the Buddha's teachings. May they be grounded in the utterly pure discipline and through the perfect and pure conduct, reading, receiving, studying the teachings, relinquishing the defilements and practicing focused concentration. May they secure great benefit for the doctrine and being. And then it says, Geshe-la said today with respect to this wish, may they remember the past life. Geshe-la says that maybe they be mindful of going through many lifetimes rather than remembering certain situations. But I think that you can also think about it as having certain recollections from past lifetimes. The commentary says to have remembrance of the series of one's life is something of the highest moment. For one will thereby be convinced of the coming principle of cause and effect, and once the seed of bodhicitta is awakened, it will never be forgotten. Therefore, wherever they are born, may beings maintain unbroken memory throughout the sequence of their reincarnations. Such thing is illustrated in the story of Prince Kuchke or Kuchkukche. Anyway, sometimes I think that it would be great to remember our past lifetime. First of all, I think that if we had vivid and accurate memories of past lifetimes, I mean, things that can be verified, it will, first of all, give us this strong confidence in the existence of past and future lifetimes, and therefore also great confidence in the existence of continuity. Therefore, we will absolutely be convinced to behave in an ethical way that accords with karma. I think, yeah. Lama Zopa Rinpoche pointed out that there was a monk at Dojichan Institute in New Zealand that had a recollection of the past lifetime. I think that it was actually, there is this guy, Kunchok, who is the statue maker or artist. He was for some time at Bendigo and after that at Buddha House. I think that it's him. Yeah, I think that it's him. All right. And then in the first 2 lines of verse 28, when it speaks of, may everyone, just like space treasury, have uninterrupted resources. It says, when bodhisattvas achieve the concentration called the treasury of space, I think that it's somewhere along the path of accumulation, Mahayana path of accumulation, where this treasure of space concentration is achieved. I'm not sure. I think that it's the path of accumulation. So they have, it says here, 500 great treasures appear to the right and 500 to the left. Everything manifests from empty space according to their wishes. In the same way, may all beings constantly enjoy immense possessions in harmony with the Dharma. It's a nice thing to wish sentient beings to have possessions that were obtained in a way that accords with the Dharma. And then the last thing that we've covered was dedicating so that they are without violence or harm. and they have the excellent magnificence. Sorry, we also covered point 3, which is dedicated so that they may have the excellent body and that the inferior becomes supreme. So reading through the rest of verse 28. Without conflict and without harm, may they enjoy themselves in freedom. May the sentient beings with little splendor become greatly magnificent. May the poor forms of ascetics become fine and perfect forms. Anyway. So first of all, with the last 2 lines in verse 28. May they be free from all such quarrels and conflicts, and delivered from every harm and enmity. May they all have free enjoyments of whatever they wish. Moving on to verse 29. Some beings amongst the gods, for instance, whose form are ill-favored and of little splendor, suffer because they are overshadowed and oppressed by the glory of those beautiful forms. Similarly, in the human world, lamas and chieftains were of unsightly appearance. I like this term, unsightly appearance. Unsightly appearance and are without presence or dignity are like disadvantaged and unhappy. May all of them, gods and humankind, acquire a magnificent and beautiful appearance. As Geshe said today, beautiful and magnificent appearance is attributed from the perspective of the perfections to the practice of patience. So may all of us not only practice patience, but also may all beings practice patience and loving kindness, which makes them become very appealing to others. I remember that when I was new here, I spoke one day with Venerable Jamyang, the Dutch nun, and she told me that kind of one day she was, when she just at the beginning of encountering Buddhism, she saw a photo of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and she thought that it was the most beautiful person she's ever seen. And I was like, kind of, I thought myself, I look at Lama Zopa Rinpoche's photo, and I don't find his appearance to be absolutely amazing. Kind of, it's not to say that he's unattractive, but I thought that it's quite interesting that you look at a particular person and you have a karmic connection with that person, and to you they seem to be kind of the most amazing person, magnificent person, and so forth. So it doesn't have to do necessarily with physical beauty, but a sense of appeal. So then now, kind of when I look at people like Lama Zopa Rinpoche or others, where you see kind of the thing that radiates from them that make people gravitate towards them, it doesn't have to do with how beautiful they look. It's rather there's this magnificence or radiance that is radiating from the kind-heartedness. Anyway, so then it says the suffering, may all of them, gods and humankind, acquiring a magnificent and beautiful appearance. The suffering that beings feel because of physical ugliness can be illustrated by the story of the girl Dojima. Anyway, may all those who suffer hardship due to the lack of food or clothing, and therefore have emaciated and ill-favored looks, obtain perfect and handsome forms. Then we spoke a lot today about the next verse, or at least these two. However many women there are in the world, may they all become men. So I think that what Geshe said is quite clear. Here the commentary adds to that, just another thing to think of. May all the women in this world who are without physical strength, who must bear the many discomforts connected with childbirthing, and the 32 diseases peculiar to women, acquire the strength of masculinity. So I thought it's an interesting way of putting it, kind of rather than wishing them to become men, it's rather than wishing them to be free from the suffering, which I think that definitely attributed to giving a birth, which luckily I don't have to enjoy. But before we covered this verse, it says, may all women when no woman experience the pain of childbirth, like Maya Devi, something like that. Anyway, so may they be free from also from those 32 diseases peculiar to women, and may they acquire strength. And then it says, may all those of humble family whose traditional work is very lowly, So here it's very much Tibetan culture. So the slaughtering of the horses, the appropriation of gifts that accompany ransom offerings, disposing of corpses. So people that work at in Tibetan culture, at least charnel grounds, those who are responsible for the rites of dismembering corpses and so forth, they are considered to be low caste in Tibetan society. So, and also those that are involved with killing animals, butchers and so forth. All of those who are poor and despised by others, may they be able to leave all this behind. I thought it's pretty interesting, kind of, may they be able to leave all this behind rather than thinking, may they get rid of the caste system rather than thinking that they're very lowly. And anyway, I thought it's an interesting way of stating that. May they acquire wealth and a good social position, both in their family and in their work, without succumbing to pride and arrogance. May they have discipline and peace of heart. It reminds me that I had a friend at McLeodganj, a shopkeeper, a Tibetan girl, and one day I was at a shop and it was her birthday or the girl next door's birthday. Anyway, we were sitting in the shop and having a birthday cake. So I was given a plate of cake, and the one that was delivering those pieces of cakes kind of turned my back on me for a second, and the cake was immediately taken from my hand. I was thinking to myself, what's going on here? And then my Tibetan friend said that you cannot, she whispered, you cannot have this piece of cake. It was given by the daughter of someone that is handling corpses. So, it's like really low caste, and you can never have food that was given to you by someone of lower caste. So may we be, may we be free from, or may all beings be free from kind of these, I guess, preconceptions, misconceptions. Yeah, and she was just cutting cakes and giving it to others. Anyway, yeah, you can be wealthy and still be like that. Sorry? Yeah. So I wonder, is there a caste system in Australia? Not really. Hmm. I mean, there's a class system, but it allows mobility, right? So, no, so I think that probably in India and in Tibet, in the class system in those countries, there is no opportunity of mobility. I mean, now as Geshe said it's phasing out. I think that in Tibetan society, it might be phasing out more quicker. I mean, in Tibetan society, it's not as deep as in the Indian system. So in Tibetan society, probably it phases out to a certain degree, and in India also to a certain degree. It's no, as far as I remember, in India, now you have greater mobility. People can move between villages and cities and towns and so forth, but sometimes still your name, even if people don't know your background, your name might imply your caste system. Yeah. Well, you have, the untouchable in India. I think that, probably if you're, I think that the caste system, I'm wondering if it's more related to the Hindu system. So if you choose another religion, like Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, and so forth, I wonder if that caste system still applies to you, but I don't really know. Yeah, a low caste in India. Yeah, I guess that if you're Hindu, you look at Buddhist and say that they're, I mean, not always, but maybe that's part of it. All right, so I ran out of stuff to say. Those are the things that I wanted to bring up today. But also Dechen was asking if I could look at questions 4, 5, and 6 from the review questions. So when do bodhisattvas attain a body in the nature of mind? So they attain that right, or at the beginning, starting from the Mahayana path of seeing. So when they attain a perceptual realization of emptiness along the Mahayana path of seeing, this is where it is said that the abode of the body, or the state of the body, transforms, and they attain a body in the nature of mind, or a mental body. So that's question 4. Question 5, is a mental body consciousness or form? What do you guys think? Is it a mental body? Is it consciousness or is it form? Consciousness. iPhone says form. I think that iPhone is probably Paul. Single entity with consciousness. Single entity with consciousness. Yeah, I would say that a mental body is not consciousness. It is a body in the nature of mind. So it's as it says, it is a single entity with consciousness, and Jen is saying that it's a very subtle body. In the sutra system, it doesn't really say what is it made of, or what exactly it is. It is a subtle body. It's in the Mahayana Sutra system, not many details are given. In the Tantric system, we speak about the wind that acts as a mindful mind, that wind is a substantial cause for the illusory body, which is a mental body. So extremely subtle wind is indeed from the perspective of High Yoga Tantra. But from the perspective of Sutra, we can just say it is a very subtle form. Now, is it made of particles? It seems that it's not made of particles. And this is, I think, that why Geshe-la made, I think that Geshe-la made a distinction in the previous week, or maybe I got it from somewhere else. But anyway, yeah, I got it from another source in the previous week. In some schools of thought within Buddhist philosophy, form and matter are synonymous. They have the same meaning. But according to the Prasangika, they're not the same, because a matter is something that is made of particles. Form is that which is suitable to be form. So according to the Madhyamika Prasangika, an illusory body is form, but it is not matter, because matter is something that is atomically established. It is established from particles. And the mental body is not made of particles. What is it made of? Hard to know. From the sutra perspective, the explanation is not very clear. They say that the 2 unique causes for that, which I think that is in the next question. Let's look at that. What are the 2 unique causes for the mental body? Do you remember? All right, so uncontaminated karma, that's the first cause. And the grounds of the imprints of ignorance, that's the second cause. So in terms of substantial cause, we said that a substantial cause is that which transforms into the entity of the result. So for example, when we think about the substantial cause of this body, we can say that the substantial cause for the body is the sperm and ovum that came from a father and mother, became a fertilized egg from which our body has developed. So because I think that we can say that since sperm and ovum are made of particles, also the result of them, the body, is also matter. It is made of particles. Then it is said that the mental body is form, but it is not matter. It's not in that it's not made of particles. So what are the causes for that? Well, first of all, we have uncontaminated actions. So karma atomically established? It's pretty weird to think of karma being atomically established, isn't it? I mean, there are schools of thought that say that karma is physical because actions of body and mind are physical, and therefore the vow, for example, is also physical. But then, with respect to what it means to be physical, does it have particles? It's pretty odd to say that it has particles. Anyway, that's the first cause. The second cause is the ground of the imprints of ignorance. That's the second cause. So the grounds of the imprints of ignorance basically refers to cognitive obscurations, which means that when bodhisattvas perform those certain actions, rather than being motivated by ignorance, which still adheres to true existence, the basis for acting in that way is cognitive obscurations and not afflictive obscurations. So Dechen is asking, where does uncontaminated karma come from? It comes from actions which are done in conjunction with a certain either realization of emptiness, or Geshe said in the previous week, even at the level of correct assumption. So when you have realized emptiness perceptually, you can create uncontaminated actions. But even before that, before you have a perceptual realization of emptiness, which means that either when you're on the path of preparation, or even before that, when you haven't realized emptiness conceptually, which means with an inferential cognizer, even if you just have a correct assumption with respect to emptiness, Geshe maintained that you can at that point create uncontaminated actions, which means that it is uncontaminated by ignorance. Any questions about what we've covered today or what we've just spoken of about the nature of mind?
Yeah. Can I say something?
Yes.
I've been listening to Geshe Vaptan's teachings on Lorig to try and begin to wrap my mind around some of the terminology. And yesterday in his teachings, he made a very interesting comment that it is the discriminating aggregate is what a formless realm individual is imputed upon.
I think that probably it is so formless. So we have the five aggregates. They call the aggregates of name and form. So the physical aggregate is called the form aggregate, and then the four mental aggregates, which means feeling, discrimination, composition of factors, and consciousness, all of them are the name aggregates. And they're called the name aggregates because it depends upon these four aggregates from the higher realms are being imputed. So particularly in the formless realm, when there is no physical aggregate, there is no body, there's still a person. So a person is imputed or can be imputed upon the four mental aggregates. One of them is the aggregate of discrimination. Now, whether you can say that a formless being is imputed only depends upon the aggregate of discrimination and is not imputed and depends upon feeling or composition factors or consciousness.
No, that's not what I said. That's not quite what I said.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that you said that. I'm just thinking out loud.
Okay.
So, if you would say, is a person imputed or a formless being imputed only depends upon the aggregate of discrimination, I'm not sure. I mean, maybe there is a debate with respect to that I don't know of, and the conclusion would be that therefore a person is imputed and depends upon the aggregate of discrimination. But I would think that a formless being can be imputed and depends upon any of the four mental aggregates. So you would think that consciousness for sure.
I mean, and the reason, I guess is somebody talking there? Yeah.
Yeah, you were just thinking of feeling. So Venerable Chugi is saying that there is the aggregate of feeling or sensation. So if we're speaking about sensations which depend upon the body, then you have, there is a question mark with respect to that. But I think that of the 5 aggregates, if the body aggregate is missing, then we have the aggregate of feeling, which accompanies the mental consciousness. Yeah. So I think that Paul is asking what was the section Geshe-la recommended to memorize. There were verses 23 to 26. Does it answer your question, Dechen?
Oh, maybe.
Maybe. All right. That's good. Think about it. I guess it's good to kind of not commit to anything while you're not sure of it. It's good. All right, let's leave it here for now. Thank you. It says, sorry, in the dedication, due to this virtue, may I quickly become a Guru Buddha and lead all transmigratory beings without exception to that state. May the precious Supreme Bodhicitta not yet born arise. May that reason not incline, but increase more and more. In this land encircled by snowy mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful Chenrezig, Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. You uphold the subduer's moral way, who serves on the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Majjunath's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplishes magnificent prayers honoring the 3 jewels. Protector of myself and others, your disciples, please live long.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Now look, before you go, could you just clarify the recent review questions that you sent? What they're actually covering? Are they covering the first 2 weeks of this module, or the last week of the last module, and the first week of this module?
I tried to write them on the basis of the first 2 weeks of this module.
Okay, right. The first 2 weeks of this module.
Yeah,
right.
I didn't get to do review questions in the first week of this module, so I just combine both of them together.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good idea. And because I wasn't sure whether you were going to even be doing review questions or having an exam for the dedication module.
Well, for this module, kind of, I thought at the beginning that since everything is so, it seems that kind of straightforward and less complicated, that that we will forgo the exam, that we'll have no exam. Geshe-la did at the end speak about things that are rather complicated, so
yeah.
but since I've already committed myself and others not to do an exam, then I just thought, just let's forget about it for the last module. But still, I think that kind of for people that still want to use something as a reference for the review, then I'm happy to do review questions.
Yeah, no, I think review questions are good.
Excuse me, Carton, was there a week 36 that I missed, or the review questions go from week 35 to week 37? Is that just an error?
I have to say that when I set those review questions, I couldn't remember which week are we, because and I could have looked into it kind of more deeply. But what happened was we finished the previous module and we had 1 week, and I didn't do review questions for the last week, so I couldn't remember if that's week 35 or couldn't remember the number. So I just randomly decided that this week was 37, 38. Hence the confusion. Yeah, I was just random.
Great, thank you.
No worries.
And finally, how are you going with answering exams? Question. How are you going? Sorry, with correcting exams, or is that sort of on the
Sorry?
back burner? How are you going with exam marking?
Going slow.
Yeah, but on the back burner. That's
All right.
okay. That's fine.
I'm going to man up one day.
Oh, look, I suspect you're very busy. I'm aware of what you're doing outside of Chenrezig. You do a lot.
Well, I'm doing synchronized swimming for the Olympics.
Yeah.
The nose peg and everything.
Yeah, no, you sure are busy.
All right. Yeah,
Thank you.
synchronized swimming, they have this fancy nose peg. No, nose peg. Okay. Nose peg.